Very good evening, everybody. Meeting again in the session of Kant's philosophy, and we are discussing the remedy reactions from the Kant. He is the person who has made it very clear regarding the remedy reactions. No one have explained it so nicely and thoroughly. This is the, in fact, very hard work done by him throughout his life. And that's why we have a ready aspect of understanding what happens after giving a right remedy. So we have to go ahead with the eighth observation. We have finished seventh in last lecture. First one, that is the prolonged aggravation followed by a final decline of the patient. Second is prolonged aggravation after which then the long continued amelioration. Third is nothing but the homeopathic aggravation, that is the quick and immediate aggravation happens to be there, specifically when it deals with the acute cases. The fourth one is no aggravation at all. That is the fourth one is there. Then fifth one, which we have discussed over there, is the amelioration comes first and aggravation happens over there. Means whenever you have given a remedy which is of a very superficially acting and pathology is long enough or strong enough, then that remedy produces only a certain time amelioration followed by an aggravation, or sometimes in the case the obstacles are there, such things can happen. The sixth observation, that is the too short relief of the symptoms, that is also one thing which we have discussed. When it happens to be a partial simillimum, or again the same thing, that if you would have given very superficially acting remedy, too short relief happens to be there, and pathology is so advanced that there is only temporary palliation happens to be there. And last observation, which we have discussed over there, a full-time amelioration of the patient without special relief to the patient. If pathology is incurable, or certain things where the structural changes have happened, and you have chosen even though the right remedy, but after giving a right remedy also, then that structural change never gets changed, only the symptoms vanishes. And because of structural problem, if the patient is not getting the expected result what he feels, is called as that even though the symptoms gets ameliorated, there is no special relief to the patient. And he has given very clear example of a tuberculosis patient where the lungs becomes fibrosed after the treatment and only part of the lung is present. Patient's symptoms disappears, but breathlessness persists on exertion, and that is because structural change have been happened. So this is what we have discussed up till now. Let us go with the eighth observation. That is observation 8. Some patients prove every remedy they get. And this is nothing but the idiosyncrasy, which we have idiosyncratic individual, which are having a peculiar corporeal constitutions, which reacts in an exaggerated manner to the many things. Generally, their sensitivity is very high, and because of which reaction is strong enough. So some patients prove every remedy they get. Patients inclined to be hysterical, overwrought, oversensitive to all things. The patient is said to have an idiosyncrasy to everything, and these oversensitive patients are often incurable. You administer a dose of high potency, and they will go on and prove that medicine. And while under the influence of that medicine, they are not under the influence of anything else. It takes possession of them and acts as a disease does. The remedy has its prodrome period, its period of progress and period of decline. Such patients proves are provers. They will prove in highest potency. When you find patient till that proves everything you give in higher potencies, go back to the 30th or 200 potency. Such patients are most annoying patients. You will often cure their acute diseases by giving them 30th or 200, and you will receive their chronic disease by giving them the 30th, 200 or 400 potency. Many of them are born with this sensitivity and they will die with it. They are not capable of rising above this over-irritable or overwrought state. Such sensitive, oversensitive patients are very useful to the homeopathic physician. After they get out of once one proving, they are quite ready to repeat it or go to the another. So he has given or he has mentioned regarding these hypersensitive patients or who are called to be a idiosyncratic individuals. These individuals proves every remedy whatever they get. And they are the best provers, what Hahnemann have said. Because you get the rare symptoms from them during proving. You get very typical pictures which the rest of the individuals have not shown during the proving. These hypersensitive individuals have shown that, and because of which our materia medica becomes rich. One important thing happens, but when they comes to you as a patient, generally what happens, you give them a remedy, and if you give it in low potency, there are many chances that it aggravates the condition. In such types of individuals, you have to go for higher potency in infrequent doses or very low doses. You don't have to repeat it. One or two doses sufficient to prove a action or to show a reaction in such types of individuals. So here he explains over there that these are the individuals where you have to be cautious while giving the remedy. And only thing is possible that you understand the patient is idiosyncratic if the patient tells you exactly the details. And for that purpose, you must have a thorough case taking. Patient will going to tell you, doctor, please don't tell me to eat this because I used to get immediately problem over there. There are certain patients who are sensitive to the eggs. Once they take the egg, they starts getting pain in abdomen. Some patients, they are sensitive to the certain food ingredients, groundnuts, or some eatable things, and they get affected. Some are sensitive to the fruits, and if you get it in their case taking, you must be cautious while repeating the doses. You should give it cautiously. Don't repeat it and give it in high potency. Then you will never have a severe aggravation with them. So that is the eighth observation which he explains over there. Some patients prove every remedy they get. And then comes the ninth observation. Ninth observation is the action of medicines upon the provers. Healthy provers are always benefited by provings if they are properly conducted. It is well to observe carefully the constitutional states of the individual about to become a prover and to write this down and subtract them from the proving. These symptoms will not very commonly appearing the proving. If they do, note the changes in them. So he is explaining over there that during the proving, those symptoms have not been observed. And these are the symptoms when medicine is given, then you can find it out certain types of symptoms. So, certain constitutional states, they show such types of symptoms. You have to find it out whether they are because of the medicine or because of the patient's constitution. You should be cautious enough to differentiate and you should be very careful regarding differentiating them. And these are the symptoms which you have to look after. If they are from the medicine, then you have to look after them. If they are of the patient, then you have to take them as a totality. So whenever such types of symptoms comes, you have to find it out whether that is because of either constitutional state of the individual or whether they are because of medicine. And then turns the appearance of new symptoms. The 10th observation, and that relates to the new symptoms appearing after the remedy. This is nothing but the medicinal aggravation. 10th is the medicinal aggravation. If a great number of new symptoms appears after the administration of the remedy, the prescription will generally prove to be unfavorable one. Now and then, coming up new symptoms will simply be an old symptom coming up. The patient has not observed and thinks it is new one. The greater the array of new symptoms coming out of the after the administration of the remedy, the more doubt there is thrown upon the prescription. The probability is that after these new symptoms have passed away, the patient will settle down to the original state and no improvement takes place. It did not sustain a true homeopathic relation. There are two chances if you give a remedy and new symptoms appear. First chance is that if there are old symptoms which are suppressed in the patients earlier and patient was forgotten to tell you, and if those appears, that is one state, but here patient should feel better at the general level. But if the symptoms are absolutely new and there is no question of they are old symptoms of the patient, then these new symptoms are because of the wrong remedy. Then it is definitely called as a medicinal aggravation. And this, if it is there, and if it is of a severe character, then you have to treat it with antidote. If it is of a mild character, then you don't have to treat it again. Then, if it is a partial similimum working as, then you have to utilize the remaining symptoms plus newly added symptoms and find it out a right remedy for the patient. So there are two chances with which there are two ways with which you can handle that situation. But if it is strongly coming and in a strong manner, the symptoms are there, then you have to antidote that. Then comes the 11th observation. The 11th observation is when the old symptoms are observed to reappear in a proportion as old symptoms that have long been away return, just in that proportion, the disease is curable. They have only disappeared because newer ones have come up. It is quite a common thing for old symptoms to appear after the aggravation has come, and hence we see the symptoms disappearing in the reverse order of their coming. Those symptoms that are present subside and old symptoms keep coming up. The physician must know himself that the patient is on the road to recovery, and it is well to say to the patient that this is encouraging. That disease gets well from above downwards. The old symptoms often come back and go off without any change of medicine. It indicates that medicine must be let alone. If the old symptoms come back to stay, then a repetition of the dose is often necessary. So, if after giving a right remedy, for example, if you are treating very deep pathology, and immediately after starting treatment for deep pathology, the patient started getting the features on the skin. The original symptoms of the case which were suppressed way back now starts reappearing. Then it indicates that you are on the right path because it is going in the reverse order of appearance of symptoms. It is according to the Hering's law of direction of cure. So if you are treating the asthma and if skin symptoms comes out and his asthma is getting better, it indicates that patient is going in right direction. This happens many times if you have chosen very right remedy. I have seen that in many pathological cases, for example, the cancer specifically, I have seen many times after treating the cancer, the skin symptoms reappears on the body. And if it reappears, you have to be very careful. The patients are in a habit of applying again the local ointment. You have to tell them that you should not. You have to be very cautious regarding them, and you always tell your patients if anything goes wrong, always contact you instead of using local medicines or any allopathic medicine. Then it is possible to cure that pathological entity. And last observation, which Kent says over there, is the 12th observation. will notice sometimes that the symptoms takes the wrong direction. What is the wrong direction? Wrong direction is nothing but against the Hering's law of direction of cure. For instance, if you prescribe for rheumatism of the knee or feet and for the rheumatism of hands, and relief takes place at once in the rheumatism of the extremities, but patient is taken down with violent internal distress that settles in the region of heart or in the centers of spine, you see at once a transference has taken place from circumference to center, and remedy must be antidoted at once. Otherwise, structural change will take place in that new side. When disease goes from center to circumference, going out from the centers of life, out from the heart, lungs, brain, and spine, out from interiors upon the extremities, it is well. So it is when we find most gouty patients get along best when their fingers and toes are in the worst condition. To prescribe for this and to see the heart symptoms grow worse in is the most uncomfortable state of affairs, for it is attended with gradual downward tendency. Eruptions upon the skin and affections in the extremities are good signs. I remember one time I was discharged from violent old woman with quite considerable amount of billing get, who told me that when she called me in, she could walk about, and now her ankles were swollen up with rheumatism so that she could not move. The patient got another doctor but soon died. There is a great danger in selecting remedy on external symptoms alone. That is, selecting remedy that corresponds only to the skin and ignoring all symptoms that the patient may have, ignoring the whole economy and general state of the patient, because it is true that the remedy that is related to the skin alone may drive in that skin disease and cause it to disappear while the patient himself is not cured. Such a patient will remain sick until the eruption comes back again and locates in the another place. So here he explains again one more simple example. And this happens when you have chosen only on superficial symptoms or remedy. Patient is having, for example, a disorder which is at the periphery in the form of eczema. You have selected certain remedy and patient's eczema has got better, and next day patient suffers from the rheumatic condition. So disease is going in wrong direction and it creates the problem. If the rheumatism with which patient presents to you, and if you select a remedy and after rheumatism patient starts getting the heart problem, it is again going in wrong direction. This happens whenever you find it out a wrong remedy in the case. And if you find it out such type of wrong direction taken place, you have to antidote it immediately with the proper remedy. This is very important thing, otherwise the structural damage can cause a problem in such types of patients. And this happens when you casually look towards the patient or you are casual prescriber. So whatever may be the disease, whether it is acute or chronic, you should be very cautious while prescribing. And second important thing which we have learned from this chapter is that proper follow-ups are necessary whenever you choose the first remedy, so that you can find it out in which direction a patient is entering and how to tackle that condition. So these 12 observations are backbone of your practice if you understand them properly and practically apply in your practice. This is the work very clearly done by Kent in order to explain and understand how these things happen, or how the remedy works, or whether it shows a good sign or whether it shows a bad sign. So here completes one more chapter from the Kent's lectures on philosophy. I think we have finished maximum chapter. Only one chapter is remaining of third year. No, two chapters are remaining. The chapter number 6 36, the second prescription, and then the 37, difficult and incurable cases palliation. Tomorrow, we'll start with this second prescription, a very important practical part about the philosophy. So that's all for today. Today evening, we don't have a lecture regarding next series. Most probably, we'll take it in tomorrow's session. So thank you, and we'll meet tomorrow at the same time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good night.